Hi everyone and welcome. I'm delighted to be here. My name is Bram and I'm here with Martin, both from Hurricane Commerce, your data partner in stress-free and compliant cross-border e-commerce. And I'm delighted to introduce to you our first speaker here, Helen Parker, who is the Managing Director of the Supplier Central Marketplace and Community. She's over 20 years experience in retail and supply chain management with a particular interest in B2B reselling and a passion for empowering independent retailers to realize and maximize their opportunity in the global market. And she'll be talking to you today. Helen.
Hi.
Hi. Everyone enjoy the session and we'll see you at the Q&A.
Hi everyone. So I am the Managing Director of the Supplier Central and we're here today to talk to you about making money selling online. I think one of the great things about this week is obviously, as Chris said earlier, we'll be diving into how you improve your listings, all the minutiae around that. I've made the assumption that this is a session for people who already have a shop set up. Whether or not that's on a marketplace or on your own Shopify store. And what we'll be doing today is we thought a good place to start was to give you an overview of the industry. I just give you a little bit of a part about our credentials in case you wonder why we're here talking to you. The Supplier Central has been running for about 17 years. It was founded in 2014. It's the largest business-to-business stock marketplace and community website. What that essentially means is that we are like a Gumtree for business selling to business, but with the added benefit of people offering each other advice in the community, people who've been there before, people who are looking to set up. We have trades of anything in the kind of tens of thousands in the marketplace, down to people buying 5 to 10 units at a time to resell online. So one of the advantages that that's given us is a real overview of what people are doing in online marketplaces. We've obviously been going a really long time. As I said, I've been working in this area for about a decade. I have dealt in B2B trading myself. We worked with 50 of the top 100 retailers dealing with their overstock and returns. So one of the things that's happened over the years is we've managed to have an overview of what's happening, the trends that are there. We've had over 1.1 million messages exchanged within our marketplace and community, which means that people are really helping each other out, but also is kind of indicative of how big a growth sector this has been. So one of the things I wanted to use to frame all of this and how everybody is working together is to just go through the opportunity a little bit. We'll firstly go through the opportunity, then some principles around online selling, because I think they're important to have those as a foundation as well. And then into the real nitty gritty of types of suppliers, by the pros and cons of each type of supplier, how to make them work for you and where to find them if you're looking for new suppliers or looking to expand how you're working. One of the assumptions, again, that I have made in this is that you probably already have a supplier and you probably already have an understanding of some of the vocabulary around this industry. If you don't, feel free. And if there's anything that you don't understand or you want further expansion on, feel free to ask questions at the end. But as Chris has said as well, one of the advantages of the platform that we've got here this week is that we have a stand and we'll be on it answering questions. I'll also be referencing a lot of the kind of ebooks and posters and information that we have available. We have that available as download on the stand as well. So just to let you know. So if there is anything that you don't understand, we've kind of assumed a certain level of understanding of the area. But if there's anything that it doesn't make sense, feel free to ask questions and they'll be moderated and come to us at the end. So just to quickly run through the opportunity, because I think especially we were having a little chat before this session about what it's been like in the past year for small, medium and large retailers. And I think with all the doom and gloom that we've had in 2020, I think that one of the important things to remember is the opportunity that's actually out there and that this is such a growth industry. So size of the opportunity. In 2021, over 2.14 billion people are expected to buy goods and services online. And in March 2021, the e-consultancy just brought out a paper which said that e-commerce sales accounted for 34.7% of all retailing. Now that's massive. Actually, when you look through the document in detail, that actually is quite a conservative estimate as well, because it was around 50 something, 58%, I think, in January this year. Obviously, there is a lockdown effect, so trying to be a little more kind of sensible around that. That isn't likely to continue at those levels. But as you can see here, UK online sales was 74% year on year for January 2021. And that's a really large rate of growth. Obviously, there is a compounding effect that the shops weren't open to a lot of an extent, but you know, there is still this massive advantage to take advantage of. And I think we've seen that growth go year on year. We've obviously been around for a long time. And in the old days, if you said you sold on eBay or Amazon, people would kind of look at you a little bit blankly and wonder what you were talking about and assume you were doing it, you know, selling your jumpers that you don't want out of your cupboard. But now it isn't like that anymore. Fortunately, one of the things that means is that there's a massive opportunity. But one of the other things that means, and one of the reasons we're here today talking about supply, is that what you will find is that you have a lot of competition. So you have to make sure that you stand out from the crowd. You'll hear from a lot of people today about that and how you do that, and we'll reference it. But the key for us is really looking at the beginning of that journey and how you make the supply right. So what does the goods industry look like? I thought this was quite an important slide to show everyone, because basically it shows how complicated it really is. In this industry, you can basically get a supply for anywhere. This is me drawing bits where people really do this on a regular basis. If I was to draw all the lines of who bought and sold to each other within this, it would just have been a big mess, like a scribble on a page. So I haven't done that, but I think it's really important to see how everything fits in together. This slides as well will also be available later. We'll put them up on our booth also. So I think it's really important to just appreciate that there's an awful lot of places you can buy from. One of the things we'll run through is that each bit has its own advantages and disadvantages. Each bit is more or less labor intensive. And that's really important to bear in mind when you're looking at your options for supply. So when we usually do these kinds of live events, we actually end up talking a lot about how to actually make your money. Obviously today we're here to talk about supply because that's more relevant to this audience. But I still want to run through the principles that we have. If you do want to look at the principles in more detail, we have a downloadable form in our booth, which is just a one-sider, which is called the 10 Commandments of Online Selling. So feel free to do that as well. That's free for everybody. But I just want to make sure, because I refer to it, that we're underpinning within all of this the things that will really make you a success when you're selling online, because you have to think about those when you're thinking about supply. So the first thing is that there is no magic. One of the other things that happened, say 10 years ago in online retail, even 5 years ago, people talked about it like it was a little bit like people talk about Forex trading today, that you could, you know, go and buy something at a junkyard and then make tens of thousands of pounds and you'd be a millionaire forever. And that really isn't how it works anymore. The principles of the economics that you would have when you are selling in a normal shop apply online now. You are in competition against people. People can do their research. The rise of things, and I know there's Google will be talking on Friday as well here. The rise of things like Google Shopping, where you can do price comparisons. People know what they want to buy at. It's one of the reasons that Amazon and Amazon Marketplace has been so successful, is because that does the job for you of looking at price comparison. So there's no point in going out with a product that isn't in demand, that is at a bad price, without thinking about where you're going to be selling it and thinking about all of the things that go into what your sell price will be. That will include, the most important things for me actually are, fees are there everywhere and they will vary for what, you know, whatever platform you're on or how you're doing it. But you know, you're pretty much going to have some overheads of a shop. What is going to make a really big difference, and over the years we've seen so many people on the community fall foul to this, is shipping and what the price is. And what the reason I say that, you have to think about, if you are shipping from, if you are buying off a supplier and you're buying a Arctic load of stuff and you are shipping it from Newcastle to Devon, that is going to add a massive amount on per item in terms of a shipping cost, more than it is coming from, you know, down the road in a couple of trucks. You really need to be factoring those things in. So it's about thinking, what are your products? What is the demand for them? What is the price? And what are the sell fees? And at the end of the day, the thing that will really keep people coming back now is all of that feeds into, what is your customer experience? It's gone from being a kind of gray market where you can sell and you never hear from people again, and people could get fleeced, into having a product sitting there, you know, I ordered a computer and it didn't have a plug, but I never said it was included. It has changed from that to having to give a good service and having to give a good product and having to fulfill your customers' expectations in the same way that everyone would, because the bar is very, very high. Having said that, and that you need a plan and you need to know everything and what's happening, the second part that is really important is that there is luck, and fortune does favor the prepared, and you have to think of things scientifically and have a plan, but always be willing to change that plan. Nobody I have ever worked with in this industry who has been really successful has ever not had to adapt. You know, it's the same as, you know, Shell started off selling antiques, you know, and then they adapted because they discovered fossil fuels. You know, it's that kind of being adaptive as you go along. The other important thing I would say is always accept that you have to accept some losses. There is no way to function long-term and successfully in this industry without accepting losses along the way. The best example I have of this, and forgive me for people who've heard me talk about this before, but it's my favorite story. I used to have some shelves at a warehouse in Corby, and I went up to visit them, and they just had a meeting the day before with one of the big stationery retailers in the UK. And they said, look at this, Helen, they're paying for all of this all of the time. And I said, all right, what is it? And they were like, greeting cards. And I was like, okay, well, that makes sense. They were like, yeah, it's, you know, it's about 20 grand's worth of greeting cards. This is in about 2012. And they said, oh, yeah, but they won't throw them away. And I was like, well, they're paying you. Why do you want to throw them away? Like, because it's ridiculous. So their new CFO had come in and they said, you don't want to be paying for this. Please throw these away. And the guy went, well, no, I mean, I've got 20 grand's worth of revenue on the books that we're going to get for this at some point. And they went, no, look at this, open up the box. It was 2012 and inside said, Happy Christmas 2010. And the CFO said, that's great, but I'm not going to be the one to take that off the books because at the moment, I think I've got that as an asset. Now, we're all guilty of that to some extent. It's like the gambler's fallacy. You always think that the luck's going to come along. You'd be better off selling stuff when knowing you might make a loss or you might just break even. If you're going to be really pragmatic about it, you have to think about what are the long-term, what is your long-term forecast for how that's really going to sell. The same thing happened with loom bands. People were buying loom bands at kind of £5 a carton. And those were I don't remember, they were all in the plastic things, all in the shape of dinosaurs and animals that kids bought and had on their wrists in the like masses. And within 6 months, same with fidget spinners, that trend had crashed and we got offered an Arctic of loom bands for £1. Like, that is an awful lot of loom bands. It would have been hundreds of thousands. And the same thing, you know, you have to sell at the time when you think, even if it's going down, that doesn't mean it's not going to go further down. So always think about that. That's my big word of warning. Also, there'll always be competitors, and always try and be lazy. Someone who I used to work with always said, give the most complicated job to the laziest person, because they will find the easiest way to achieve it. And I think that's true of a lot of people who you'll be seeing this week. I would say, whatever stage you're at, it's worth looking at service providers to make your life easier. You're only going to sell less things if you are running around trying to get to the post office at the right time. You don't know what stock you've got in each place. People like Hurricane, who are sponsoring today, you know, they really have a service that wasn't around 10 years ago that will just make your life easier. And the same will be for a lot of the other people talking. So it is worth going and listening to those people and hearing what they do, because if you can give anything away to a computer, it's going to make your life a lot easier, and you're going to give a better customer service at the end of the day. So I'm going to go on to each of the suppliers. One of the things, because I know everybody here probably has some idea of, for example, the bits that are really our bag, but wholesalers and manufacturers and distributors, etc. There's a lot of text on some of the slides, and that is because, and I don't want to just read it out, that is because I want to be able to refer back to this afterwards and give as much information as possible to everybody. So I won't read them out, but they will be available, as I said before. But it is a little bit of a whistle-stop tour, because it could genuinely be a whole week just on this topic. But please, make sure that you follow up if there's anything else that you want to know or anything that you don't understand. So first one is manufacturers and distributors. The advantages of manufacturers and distributors, you're obviously going straight to the source. They're usually reputable big firms to have survived this long, unless they're kind of doing it themselves, and you can work that out very quickly. There's a clear price and transparency around it. You have a right to return the stock, which we'll talk about in some other kind of less known sources later, isn't always there. It's new stock, so you don't have to deal with grading. Disadvantages, often there's a minimum volume. It's bulk buy only. There's a percentage often up front. That can be an issue if you have cash flow issues. It's often unbranded, so you'll have to do touch work later, and often actually you need the contacts. Though one of the big advantages of manufacturers and distributors is that they are obviously doing this purely to sell to businesses. So you are their target market. The problem is whether you have enough money for it to be worth their effort, and enough cash flow. So that's something just to bear in mind. When you're thinking about making them work for you, I would say, and I'll probably say this about everything, apart from a couple of the kind of lesser known ones, pick a product first. Do not use a manufacturer or distributor's catalog as a ideas session for what you want to sell, because you'll be going at it the wrong way round. And you might get overexcited because you like the look of something, but what will actually happen is that you will end up honing in on something without going in with a clear idea of what the sell price is. What you want to do is do your research on the marketplaces online, see what things are selling for, decide what is a good product niche area to be in, and then go to a manufacturer or distributor, or search for a manufacturer or distributor with that in mind. Again, keep laboring the point, but it will be the biggest difference, is don't get caught up with the idea of the product. Make sure you work out what every single cost is. In this area, make sure you ask what the shipping prices are. Where to find on Google and Alibaba. We have some on our website as well, but get references and samples. I was talking on Friday to one of our sellers who has just started buying from China, and did it through Alibaba, through their system. And I think one of the things that they said was the most important thing they learned is to get a sample of the stock. They're going into an area that, again, they've worked out, it's actually bunting, that they've worked out will sell well over the summer. But they said they are sinking a cost in order to get a minimum a minimum amount for them, and they're looking at lots of different product lines. They're sinking a small cost on the first product line, which they're accepting is just part of setting up a business. And then they're asking for samples of other product lines that they're paying for to be sent to them. And they said one of those in particular that are really good in the catalog, they just did not like the quality and knew it wouldn't sell here when it arrived. So that's just a bit of, just to get a bit of understanding. You can never really see if it's coming from that far. It's a bit of a commitment. And there are ways around that through messaging. Anyone who won't give you a sample, I would say, not free. I don't think you necessarily should be given a free sample shipped all the way from China for a wheelbarrow if that's what you're looking for. But, you know, just make sure that you are getting all of the assurance you can up front and an understanding of what you're selling, and consider price stability and seasonality and potential difficulties in shipping. Obviously, if something's coming from quite far, and we saw this in the first lockdown of the pandemic, there was all sorts of things stuck. You know, even the big retailers like John Lewis or Sainsbury's had their things like garden furniture stuck out at seas. You know, so make sure that you have left enough for some, like, from spare time. Do not, for example, get to August and order lots of garden furniture. You kind of want to be doing that now, today. So I think that's everything on that one. I could obviously talk about it forever. Refurbers. So refurbers are people who will take products back. For example, like TVs, phones, electronics, computers, and refurb them in-house so they get to a place where they could be sold on a marketplace. One of the really big changes that we've seen in the past 5 years is that due to eBay really having that as a category now and people understanding, I think that people know what it is to buy a refurbed phone, for example. That means that they actually sell quite well. And I wouldn't discredit refurbers, which is why I've put them in as a really good place to get stock at a cheaper rate. And that you can sell on, because I think people really do understand what is happening, it happens with refurb stocks. Now, that doesn't mean that you can't do it to a good standard, which is why you need a professional refurber. Again, when you're looking where you can find these people, you want to already have an idea of the product in your head, because it will be fundamentally, it'll be a lot easier to find people if you're already going, I want a Apple or a Samsung phone refurber who I trust to work with. I would also recommend, and this might be a little controversial considering we're talking about online, but I would recommend going local where you can, especially if you're dealing with bigger items. And my reason for saying that is that often what happens with refurbing is it's attached to another business. So for example, I worked with an auction house years ago who they took back all of the parcels for shipping companies, and anything that got lost got returned to them. And they would then open the packages and refurb what came out. They had a very specialized arm that did that within their much bigger complex. They couldn't have taken that contract without having that ability. What that means is you can go and see it and see what they're doing, and they're accredited and all of those types of things. Again, it works better for some product niches than others, but you have to really look at it. We'd recommend electronics, computers, mobile phones, things that people can refurb. Again, there are also people who are doing things like upcycling and or clothing, the rise of things like Depop, doing clothing marketplace, not on the high street, Etsy, means that actually you do get people who are creative and want to do the upcycling, but they don't actually want to deal with the admin of selling it. So maybe that you can get a partnership with someone like them. Or it may be that you can just, people do understand what grading means on those kind of areas. So next one, a jobber. Now, I had a I did have a kind of question marks myself about whether to include jobbers or not, because actually they were really, really, really common 10 years ago. They were, it does them actually a massive disservice, but it's probably the best reference to explain to them as kind of a Del boy who would go up to the back of, you know, the WH Smith's warehouse on a Friday and go, what have you got for me? And they buy a bulk of all of the things that WH Smith had as overstock, and you know that would, and then sell it on over the next coming week. Now they aren't really like that now, and then notoriously, if you ask anyone in the industry, people will go, oh, jobbers. But the thing about jobbers is that they have these really good relationships with tier 1 retailers often, where, and they're much more professional outfits now. They're much more online, because all warehouses have gone online, so stock doesn't go missing anymore like it used to. They have these kind of relationships one-on-one with these tier 1 retailers, because the tier 1 retailers don't have to advertise that they've got stock that's selling at a lower price. They just give a parcel to a jobber, and the jobber takes away and gives it off to lots of different smaller businesses, and that works really well for them. The jobber also will understand, and they'll have signed a contract around their needs. So for example, I don't know if it's true anymore, but in the old days, if you took a parcel from Sainsbury's, you had to black mark out every reference to Sainsbury's. When I did the Amazon contract, you have to unbox the Amazon things and take off any reference to Amazon on the parcels. That's a prerequisite of getting it, but because they know it's high touch point, that does also mean that you will get things at a lower price. You also have to remember, when you're negotiating price, you're probably competing with the other people that they're selling to, and a jobber, by the nature of the fact that they're going to make more money the less money you make. So just bear that in mind. Is again, just decide what your buy and sell prices are and stick to them. But they are very tolerant. So you can go in and give a bid for something, and they'll say no, you know, go away, not interested. But go back the next week, and you might get lucky. It's, you know, it is an out for themselves, but also they're very, very good contacts, and they have contacts with tier 1 retailers that nobody else will have, except you'll be competing. Where to find them? They're a little bit like a, you know, elusive eagle. You basically have to have word of mouth and networking, and make sure that you get a reference for somebody. That's usually the way to find them. That will become a lot easier, obviously, once we're out of the pandemic. But yeah, it is usually networking and word of mouth. But once you're in the industry and really talking to those types of people, you will find that people go, oh, you should talk to this person, and you get referred onto them. And a lot of the refurbers, for example, or reverse logistics, will have a jobber that they work with. So bear that in mind as well. Bringing us on to reverse logistics. So, for example, reverse logistics are often part of a bigger business. So people who deal with transportation, and in order to get the contract, they'll also take the disposal for returns, or, you know, and they'll sort through them and reduce the admin for their client. Sometimes it's quite difficult for a transportation person to get a contract without dealing with the reverse logistics of the goods within it as well. So for example, I've worked with Kuehne + Nagel on mobile phones, and been to their warehouse, which is very impressive. And it's very similar to the refurbers, where, you know, you go to this massive Kuehne + Nagel warehouse on the M6. Most of it is just getting stuff in and out and dealing with their day-to-day logistics. And in a relatively small corner, though it would be called a big warehouse in any other town, there will be people dealing with all this stuff that's come back in. It's better for the retailers to have somebody who will deal with that, rather than trying to work out, like, right, here's this, you know, one iPhone 6, where was it meant to be, where did it go? That's not worth it at that point. It's just a cost of doing business to them. So then the reverse logistics company will then sell that on. They'll either do that for jobbers, but they'll also usually have like a weekly list that they have, that they will send out to anyone on their database. They are literally looking for the easiest way to not deal with this admin, because it's not how they make money and it's not what they do. It's just a necessary evil of doing business. The advantage is obviously these people are usually very reputable. There's a good price for it because you're taking admin off their hands. The stock is actually often sorted and verified. They've already graded it. So when it comes in, they'll go, that's as new, that's as new, that is got some cosmetic changes, cosmetic scratches or something, you know, this one isn't working at all, it's smashed in the bottom of the box. You know, they'll actually often have done that for you. But that does depend. Sometimes it can also be a disadvantage because you just get a big pile of stuff and it's kind of luck of the draw. The Amazon contract used to be a bit like that, where you would literally get 6 trailer loads in a day and have to sort through every single thing to work out what grade it was at in order to sell it. So just be aware that you'll be adding that cost, if that's something that's happened, onto the price. So also decide what price you think you can sell each grade before you start bidding. Like cosmetic things on a phone, for example, sounds well and good. Obviously a phone works even if it's just got a scratch, but will people buy it? Are you going to need to make it new? What is the cost of that? How to find: ring all the big transportation companies, ask if they deal with stock, and they often have someone for whom it's a headache who will add you to their list. Drop shippers. So I have personally quite mixed feelings about drop shippers because we have had, they're probably the people on the Supplier Central who we reject the most, because a lot of people claim to be drop shippers. So they hold the goods for you. When you make a sale on a marketplace, they will send it straight out to your customer, item by item. That sounds absolutely fabulous and amazing, but you never see the goods. That's obviously an advantage because it's zero touch. You can negotiate on price with these people usually. You have no holding risk, warehousing costs. The disadvantage is you have zero control, and notoriously these people can be kind of come and gone within, you know, who knows if they've really got a warehouse there. How do you know, there's a warehouse out in China in a province and you've seen a video of it, and then you see a video of the same thing the next week of a different warehouse, you know, and you know, it is a very difficult market to work out what is really going on and what the quality of the goods is going to be, because you're never going to see it. Obviously, the first thing you should always do there is get a sample sent yourself, buy off of them as a user, not go to them and go, I'd like a sample. They're clearly going to send you their best thing. Find where they're selling to and buy off of them as a user. Then take company references and personal references. For us, that's usually where it falls down, is when you ask for both. When you ask for a personal reference from the person, from a director of the business, and ask for company references. It's the same thing that happened with the COVID bounce back loans, where you could just set up a company's house and that was enough to get you to be able to apply for a bounce back loan. Don't act like the government. You need to make sure you also ask for something to verify who they are. Don't ask for references that don't really verify who that person is. If you could set it up today, that's not a reference that you want. Take an initial low volume and ask for documentation on logistics and shipping and how they'll be doing that. So, you know, the biggest thing that can ruin an online shop is people saying, I wanted this tomorrow for my son's birthday and you've ruined my life. You know, that's going to stay on your account and really hit you hard. So make sure that you have some kind of guarantee around from that, and also consider using an agent. One of the most successful people we had ever on the Supplier Central was a guy called Pete, who's unfortunately passed away now, but he acted as an agent between here and drop shippers. So he would go and visit warehouses if you gave him the address, and go and verify them and look at the goods, and he would instantly know sometimes, like, not to even bother. He'd be like, no, this isn't real. So there are people who would do that. That's something you can ask for on the Supplier Central as well, to see if there's anyone there, and we have members obviously who've been doing that for quite a long time. So where to find that? On our directory, Google, Alibaba. as with everything on here, if you have a recommendation from somebody you know, that's always going to be the best way to get somebody who's a good supplier. Wholesalers. So I'm not going to run through this actually in that much detail because I can see that I'm running out of time. But I think people probably know about wholesalers in general. But the advantage obviously is it's new stock. This is where most of our members really sit within the UK. This has a massive advantage now, obviously, because you don't have to pay import or export or trading taxes or anything like that to get things in and out of the country. You need to make sure that they are reputable, exactly the same as everybody else. Where would you find them? We'll give ourselves a big plug here and say on our directory. Everybody who we have on as a verified seller on our network we've checked their references, and that's what you need to do. In the UK as well, at a minimum, I would always say pull the accounts from a company's house. Anyone can do that. It's free. And then you'll know what size of company you're dealing with. If they say, oh, we deal in 50,000s all the time and their turnover's £1,000 a year, then probably lying a little bit somewhere. And again, you can always get people to video show you around their warehouse. That's quite normal now because people are looking for guarantees. Auction houses. I worked with auction houses for quite a long time, and there are obviously massive benefits to an auction house because you have often the prices of goods is VAT free. Because of the nature of auction house. There's often bargains available. I have a lot of things in my house from auction houses. There are tier 1 retailers often go through auction houses for the same reason they go through jobbers. They're used to doing clearances. They'll turn up and take all of their stuff for a fixed price. And then it's the auction house's responsibility of what they sell them for. No reserve auctions mean that the minimum price it goes for, it has to sell. So the market sets its own value. Disadvantages, the really big one is you have no right to return if viewing is available. There's no distance selling regulations. You can't go, I want to give this back. I've decided I don't want it. It can often be graded. They just have to do sold as seen. And the fact that you could have gone and visited the stock counts in the auction industry enough to mean that you don't have a right to return. Where to find ukauctioneers.com for kind of lower end stuff or kind of physical things, industrial stuff, or barnabys.com if you're looking for, getting into buying and selling £20,000 paintings or exciting vases. Tier 1 retailers, advantages obviously are probably quite obvious to everybody. There's less steps in the process, so you're buying probably at the best price. Unfortunately, probably dealing with competing with people like TK Maxx for volume, who do buy off of retailers at massive volume. It's unlikely you'll get anywhere with these guys, if I'm honest. But if you ring round and if you have the buying power to get a contract, as I mentioned, we've done it. We did it with 50 of the top 100 retailers. What the worst case scenario, you'll probably find who they're using to dispose of their stock and be able to go that way. Business liquidation and clearance houses. Again, the advantages is that they're cheap and you can find hidden gems. When a business goes into liquidation, often the liquidator or administrator will go through an auction house. But often they have legal obligations to the debtors of the business to get the highest possible price. And that might mean they publicly advertise it first, especially if you're in office furniture or industrial, and don't discount the big boys of administration and liquidation. They have email lists you can get on. I still have some that I'm signed up to, that I get a list every Friday of all the businesses that they're dealing with that are going into liquidation, and just getting into that stock. So that is a whistle-stop tour of all of the types of suppliers. If there's any more that people want to ask about, please let me know. And just a little bit about us. We are the Supplier Central, which was formerly the Wholesale Forums. I've given you the stats already, but we've got almost 250,000 members and over 1.1 million messages exchanged. So it's a very proven platform and community that works. It's free to buy on the platform. free advice and community. If you want to be a seller of goods on the platform or sell your services, it's only £15 a month, and you can sign up online. And we also have obviously lots of display options for, lots of display and email options for advertising to our people as well, which we sell on. So let me know if that's anything that you guys would be interested. And where to go for more, we're at the virtual stand here all week, thesuppliercentral.com, and my email. And if you want to connect with me on LinkedIn, then I've done a redirect to, if you just do helenjparker.com, then it'll redirect to my LinkedIn, so you don't have to search around for me. So thank you very much. That's the end of all my slides. I will stop sharing my screen, and then I think I'll go big.
There you go. Thank you very much, Helen. That was really, really pragmatic presentation. It took me back a few years when I was involved in various pieces of stocking and supply chain and the middle sense of suppliers. I thought that was really, really pragmatic, actually, looking at the supply side of a business, and some do's and don'ts and some practical hints and tips. If I was to say go to let's say a major brand retailer, how do they look or qualify people coming in there where, say they're in an overstock situation? How do they decide and verify you to award those contracts to?
Yeah, so it does really depend on retailer by retailer. But if I talk in kind of broad strokes about that, the fundamentals is you have to have a company set up and some kind of proof, and they will often either ask for just a price up front, or a guarantee of what you're going to buy at. The days actually of them being happy for you not to buy up front are kind of over a little bit, and take things on tick to sell on and then give them the money when you sell them. That's kind of gone a little bit, because frankly, they don't have to anymore. Like, there are so many people doing this that they don't need to do anyone any favors, really. The favor you're doing for them is to take the admin off of their hands. So for example, let me use the example of one of the biggest online marketplaces in the UK. Their way of bidding is that they would divide by category. They would say how much stock they got in each category. They would divide that category by grading. So they'd say like brand new clothes, for example. And then you would say, this is my bid for each of these categories. Mm-hmm. And then they would go out and say that. And then you would be put in a pot, and the person who gave them the lowest price would win. It really is that simple. Then they care about if you're going to pay them on time. And they care about if you are reputable and if you're going to follow their rules. So as I referred to before, that's really, really important for them. So I think being a professional outfit and showing them that you understand how they behave is the only way to do that, to build up a big relationship with them. You can usually get on these people's list, but again, they'll probably do due diligence on your business, and want some kind of personal due diligence on yourself as a director as well, or of a director of the business you're working for. You don't really, it's not worth their time to get in too many scrapes. The worst nightmare scenario for a retailer who is dealing with this is for someone phoning them up going, I've seen this on here looking like this, and no one is meant to know that this is our stock, and why, and now they know that we're selling House of Fraser stock at like 2%. Why would they not go? Why wouldn't they? They completely devalues their brand, and that will get them in really big trouble. You just really have to think about minimizing the risk for the retailer.
No, it's a good point, actually, because you've also got to consider that stock as well in a global perspective.
Yeah,
a lot of suppliers, and I remember one of my managing director positions sort of after my second day at work, I had a very large brewer that their Eastern European organization had offloaded stock into the UK.
Yeah.
We passed it to a jobber, and that was in contradiction to their global licensing contract. So we were selling it in the UK through a jobber, literally 50% margin, and 50% lower than their price thresholds in the UK. So yeah, it's quite.
And now because of online, it's so obvious. Like it doesn't. Like they have alerts set up. Like we had that with people we'd have sold on to. We'd broken a container down into small packages, and they knew the barcode. So it's something. This was for one of the big, actually, kind of outlet size, but they'd have they knew that like snow and rock, ski jacket. They could trace it all the way back, and they were like, how is this possibly appearing at this price? Like, you said you weren't going to, you said that you'd scrub out the things on that. And, we had, but they managed to look through and like put it on as like, and trace it back to them. And as well as a massive advantage for the person selling online, actually, it did get passed down the chain because we made sure our contracts were protecting ourselves. But yeah, it is so obvious now if you don't obey their rules. So they're just looking for reliability.
Yeah, and it tracing stock from anywhere in the globe will get more and more tight because of technology like blockchain, going right back to the raw material source, where it comes through all the supply chain, where it goes through packaging, who was operating on that packaging unit at that day. Yeah. So it will get it'll get tougher and tougher and tougher, which is not necessarily a bad thing. Bram, are there any questions in from some of the audience?
We've got one question from the audience. Someone asked, is it worth looking into marketplace integrators or not?
As in technology, I assume that means to 100,000%. We often say, actually, like I say to people, the moment you're not selling in one place, then go to a marketplace integrator. It might feel like massive overkill, but we all saw what happened in the first lockdown of the pandemic. And a lot of these smaller companies got really tied up in trouble. And it was quite sad because it was this massive opportunity for people to take advantage. When stock got low on all of the big boys, they could have taken advantage of being able to scale up at really high speed. But because they weren't integrated and they didn't have stock management systems and they couldn't have things going to different marketplaces to meet demand at different times, they were just a week behind. So, then the kind of people who could spend money quickly rose to the top. I would say there is no real harm in taking on the overhead of a marketplace integrator. Once you get to a level where you're doing it, say more than 2 or 3 days a week, I personally am terrified of feedback. So I would use a marketplace integrator at all times. But I think it is really important to make sure that you can scale fast, and also just to take a headache away from you so you don't sit crying and rocking in a corner at night.
Right. We've got one more question. I think we've just about got time for it. Someone asked, can you repeat the last bit where we can see the contacts of you and the Supply Central?
Yes, we can. I certainly can do that. I'm happy to assist. Let me do one more. Let me. This one, I assume, was the one. That's probably everything.
I'm assuming so, yeah.
Okay, thank you so much, Helen. I think.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's really, really educational and pragmatic, and I'm sure people can contact you through the remainder of the event. I think we now move to a networking break to 11:05, and then we're back with the selling side of the equation, which is how to stand out from the crowd with promoted listings with Mark and Ellen from eBay. So thank you very much and see you soon.
Thank you.